professional services, facing our economy generally and facing our nation as a whole. I'm not a politician, and it's not for business to lecture the public, people in this room, on how to vote in any future referendum. So I'm going to focus my comments today on the practical, common sense business issues as I see them. And let's face it, we would be trying to negotiate our way into a market the size and scope of the European Union. When I was in the US quite recently, and everybody I spoke to was really excited about the TTIP, the EU-US trade negotiation. Nobody took me to one side and said, you know, we'd much rather be doing this with the UK. And that applies to the politicians and then as much as the business leaders. So all I'd argue is for us to take a sensible view of actually which gives us the best negotiating hand. Is it to be a member of a major trading bloc where actually the UK expertise is valued and recognised, where actually we are able to negotiate incredibly well both within the EU as well as setting the pace. And I think the UK has got actually the leadership role. It's all well and good to bang on about reform, but actually the UK's view is hugely respected in other European member states. I think part of the problem that we've seen in the recent years is that the UK has rather retired from its leadership position. And when I visit Germany or France or other European member states, what's made perfectly clear to me is that because we have the world's most sophisticated financial market, that the UK's voice carries much more weight than any other European member state. But actually we've been a little bit too quiet. So I would rather argue for constant engagement. Let us set the tone for the Europe that we want to see living in there, actively negotiating, make the use of the seat at the table that we already have, and negotiate much more strongly for the UK's position, rather than take a step back and then worry about how on earth we try to get back into the single market.
Joe, let me just issue a challenge, Chris, to you and to all the UK press, and the international press that are here in this room. In the next Strasbourg session, in a couple of weeks' time, financial services are due to be a very big part of the agenda that will be debated and voted on in the European Parliament. These things are subject to change, but at the moment, it's on the agenda. And I would challenge you, Chris, just sit in the gallery of the European Parliament and just listen to the speeches. And you will hear British politicians arguing for reform and arguing that we've got the expertise to help Europe find the right track. And you'll find a solid wall of hatred against everything the City of London stands for virtually everybody else. And I really mean that, particularly with the UK press, who completely ignore what's happening in the European Parliament. I mean, I agree it's a ghastly place, but it is an important sounding board, you know, for what has been said and done by the big political parties all across Europe. So that is my challenge. Go to Strasbourg in February, listen to the debate, and you'll find that overall I am right. We are loathed and despised when it comes to financial services.
Absolutely right. They're supporting the City of London, making a speech.
Oh, yeah. And what will happen? If I had one of these last week, there were a series of quite important votes, and I found that on all the ones that really matter to you here, who believe in self-control and self-management, we had about 23 people supporting 600 against. So, yeah, I'll be there, whistling in the wind, but at least I'm not pretending I can turn the ship around, because the ship is determined where it's going to go.
I can only talk from my own personal experience of visiting Brussels, dealing with MEPs, Commission officials. Not only people are intrigued to know what's going on in the UK, why actually we're not punching our weight in the most senior of discussions, why we tend to arrive a little bit late with a bit of a negative attitude towards the discussions, rather than arriving early and saying what we'd like. And I think perhaps over the last few years, this isn't a party political point, because I think it's been true of all the major parties, the UK hasn't actually set out a positive reform agenda over the last few years, and certainly that is the agenda I'd like us to pursue over the coming years, because yes, financial services is our country's main export earner, 40% of GDP. So it's about time we took the same level of interest, I would say passion, as I see in other European member states about their national industries, whether that's manufacturing in Germany and agriculture in France. We are the ones who should be proposing the rules rather than merely responding to them. But this is something we must take seriously, because we just don't have enough people in the Commission as Commission officials, and we must work more strongly with European allies, in order to get the changes that we want to see. Well, that was my first on-screen debate with Nigel Farage, we've had to recognise that the next European Parliament will see a very different complexion as more populist parties are elected to the Parliament, and therefore it's important that financial services engages with political parties from across the spectrum to make sure that every new MEP understands the value of financial services and the role of the City of London in creating jobs and sustainable economic growth across every European member state, not just here in the UK.
On the evidence of what you've just experienced, do you think you can get that message across to even to UK members?
I think it's really important over the course of the next year that financial services works harder than ever before to engage with every MEP candidate and then elected MEP to make sure that they understand the value of financial services.
Okay, UK exit, disaster or opportunity?
One of the issues that concerns my member firms is the constant debate around the UK leaving the EU. Now, the Prime Minister, in his speech around this time last year, introduced the subject of the UK having potentially a referendum should the Conservative Party win the next election. This is without doubt a matter of great concern for every industry in the UK, particularly financial services, given our national leadership role. So I think it's now time for our industry to let policymakers know how seriously we're taking this issue and to prove the case, actually, that staying in the EU, that reforming the EU, and the UK taking a leadership role in that new EU is essentially important to the UK's national interest over the long term.